The National Desk, America's News Now.
Breaking as we come on the air, severe weather sweeping across the country. The warnings out tonight and what's in store for your 4th of July plans. Happening now, the search continues for suspects in Baltimore's mass shooting. 2 dead, 28 injured, and some clinging to life tonight.
There were grown adults filming young people with guns who said nothing, who did nothing, who didn't say to the police, hey, I know this teenager's out here at this event with a gun.
And terrorism in focus tonight as Israel's bold moves strike fears of war with Palestine.
As I speak, our troops are battling the terrorists with unyielding resolve and fortitude while doing everything to avoid civilian casualties.
This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez, and we start with breaking news now. Nearly 100 million people at risk of severe storms making their way across the northern U.S. and the East Coast. 60 to 80 mile per hour wind and isolated very large hail probable in parts of Wyoming, South Dakota, and Minnesota this evening. Meantime, Virginia Beach up to Baltimore, Maryland, currently under a wind advisory with a chance of pea-sized hail and severe storms hitting the southeast from Dallas to Miami. Lots going on, including right now 36 million Americans under heat alerts. The purple and orange areas you see here on this map, that indicates warnings and advisories for heat. Portions of the Northwest could see record-breaking temperatures, temperatures higher than normal along much of the West Coast into the Southwest. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow, more than 113 million people could have their holiday impacted by some severe storms throughout the day. You're going to want to keep an eye on those local fireworks festivities. Cancellations are likely. The worst of it expected in the central U.S., where early morning storms may be present, and then as the day warms up, an increase in storm development is probable in the upper Great Lakes as well as in the eastern Sun Belt, all the way up the East Coast, bringing a 5 to 15% chance of high winds and hail. A fire is moving fast in southern Washington, with hundreds of residents under evacuation orders today. Skamania County and surrounding counties are under a red flag warning through Wednesday. County officials saying the Tunnel 5 fire covers more than 500 acres, and they have not been able to contain it just yet. Several structures already damaged by this, and it's not clear what started the fire. Tell City Police Sergeant Heather Glenn was killed today in southern Indiana, along with the suspect, Sean Hubert, when shots were fired at a local hospital following a domestic disturbance call. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. Indiana State Police declined to give further information as the department continues its investigation into that shooting. New tonight, an arrest in connection with a nightclub shooting in Wichita, Kansas last night. Police identifying the suspected gunman as 31-year-old Brandon Young. They expect more arrests in the near future. Police also confirming 2 more shooting victims, bringing the total to 11 people hurt, 2 of which are in critical condition. Police are investigating a mass shooting at a Baltimore block party early yesterday that left an 18-year-old woman and a 20-year-old man dead and 28 people wounded, 4 in critical condition. The National Desk's Keith Daniels reports from Baltimore.
Well, the mayor and acting police commissioner say it's now all about finding the shooters responsible for this tragedy and holding them accountable. Now, I say shooters because at the news conference today, acting police commissioner Rich Worley says there's ballistic evidence indicating that there were multiple firearms used in this incident, at least 2 or 3 weapons used. Police say they're trying now to identify individuals that they want to speak to, persons of interest that could lead to suspects. Now, investigators are relying on all of that cell phone video that many individuals captured during that deadly incident. But for now, the search is on for suspects, and there's a public plea from Mayor Brandon Scott and police.
We won't stop until we find those responsible and hold them accountable. We won't. With that said, we need the help of our residents and anyone that knows anything to come forward and say something.
Right now, our detectives are still working through interviewing every one of the victims. We will continue to pursue any leads, so that's why we need the help from the community, because we have only touched some of the video that's out there.
Well, as mentioned, police say they are talking to victims trying to get suspect information, and police say many of them are cooperating despite that so-called stop snitching attitude that's notoriously infamous for some parts of the Baltimore community. In Baltimore, I'm Keith Daniels for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
And the search continues for the person who threw explosives at several businesses in Northeast Washington, D.C. Sunday. Within 15 minutes, a Truist Bank, a Nike store, and a local Safeway were all hit by Molotov cocktails. Authorities are offering a reward of up to $20,000 for information leading to an arrest in the case. A Michigan man accused of attacking a police officer with a flagpole at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, has been arrested in Florida. Jeremy Rogers now faces multiple felony and misdemeanor charges. He will be prosecuted in Washington, D.C. So far, more than 1,000 people have been arrested stemming from that violence on January 6, 2021. A new ABC News Ipsos poll shows a majority of Americans approve of the Supreme Court's decision to restrict the use of race as a factor in college admissions. 52%, in fact, of those surveyed approve of the affirmative action ruling. 32% disapprove. 16% say they're just not sure. Three-quarters of Republicans support the ruling, along with 58% of independents, though just roughly a quarter of Democrats feel the same way. Legacy admissions now in the spotlight since last week's ruling. Today, the group Lawyers for Civil Rights filing a complaint alleging that Harvard's admissions system violates the Civil Rights Act by giving an unfair advantage to the mostly white children of alumni. Harvard says it will not comment on the complaint. During the 2022 midterm election campaign, Republicans vowed to investigate the origins of COVID-19 should they win control of the House. They did. And next week, they're holding a hearing on the matter. This after a new report came out by the Biden administration. National correspondent Christine Frizzell brings us more on what we can expect.
March 2021 marked a year since much of the world had shut down from COVID-19, when the former head of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said this to CNN.
I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory, escaped. Other people don't believe that. That's fine. Science will eventually figure it out.
But science still hasn't, in large part because China has not allowed researchers to obtain data and access they need. Meanwhile, the lab leak theory became political, but today remains one of just two theories on the origins of COVID-19, as laid out in a recent report released by the Biden administration, assessing that both a natural and laboratory-associated origin remain plausible hypotheses to explain the first human infection.
It really doesn't make any attempt to show what the intelligence groups used, what data they reviewed, what experts they brought in.
Republicans vowing to find out more, including in an upcoming hearing on the topic.
We want the intelligence released, not their opinion about the intelligence.
They'll also dig deep on a set of emails from a top NIH official, Dr. David Morens, who they say used a private email as part of a cover-up. Quote, "As you know, I try to always communicate on Gmail because my NIH email is FOIA'd constantly," who also suggests his boss, Tony, Dr. Anthony Fauci, doesn't want his fingerprints on COVID origin stories. Democrats accusing Republicans of pushing theories as facts to the detriment of our country's public health system.
The U.S. still lacks two things in the public health arsenal: people and trust. These continued smears on public health officials is destroying them.
So at least at this point, there is still no smoking gun. More than 3 years into the pandemic, the facts about how it started remain in dispute. I'm Christine Frizzell, reporting for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Listen to this. In some cities around the country, 4th of July celebrations will look and perhaps sound a little different this year, with more municipalities opting to use drones for the big light show instead of traditional fireworks. Salt Lake City and Myrtle Beach already had drone shows over the weekend. You see them here. The Salt Lake City mayor saying that the new format was to minimize fire danger and also lessen air quality problems. Boulder, Colorado, as well as several cities in the Southern California area are expected to make that switch tomorrow night. If you're headed to the grocery store to stock up on those 4th of July cookout goodies, here's some average prices you'll be looking at here. According to the Wells Fargo Agri-Food Institute report, to grill burgers, the cost of a pound of beef is only up about less than 1% from last year, a little over $5.30 for a pound. Processed cheese up 10% at about $4.77 per pound. Bread also up 22%, $1.95 a pound. Potato chips jumping 15% to $6.45 per pound of chips. The USDA recalling more than 3,000 pounds of fully cooked hot dogs packed by the Purdue Premium Meat Company due to misbranding and undisclosed allergens. This report came in that smoked sausages, which contained milk, were incorrectly labeled as all beef. And Tyson Foods, the nation's largest poultry producer, is dropping its no antibiotics ever label. The new packaging will say no antibiotics imported into human medicine, which meets the standard recognized by the USDA and the World Health Organization. Meantime, Purdue says it still does not use any antibiotics, and Pilgrim's Pride says it uses some. Coming up here on the National Desk, Chinese-American tensions hitting a new milestone as the State Department issues an urgent warning to Americans. And is war on the horizon? Renewed tensions following the latest offensive in the West Bank. And the future of is now as the FAA gives approval to one-time science fiction dream, flying cars. The U.S. State Department has issued a travel advisory for Americans traveling to China due to concerns over the government's arbitrary law enforcement. The State Department warning that this increases the risk of exit bans on U.S. citizens and wrongful detentions. Now, this advisory comes after a 78-year-old U.S. citizen was sentenced to life in prison in China on spying charges in May. Meantime, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is headed to China this week in an effort to improve relations between the countries. Yellen is set to speak with senior Chinese officials, but not with the president of China. This visit will make Yellen the second cabinet-level member to visit China in the past month. A major shakeup in NATO's alliance is expected at a summit next week to defend against Russia. The alliance is beefing up security of member countries around Moscow. 40,000 troops are on standby now from Estonia to Romania, with 100 aircraft patrolling the skies. NATO plans to have 300,000 troops ready to move to its eastern flank in the next month. Today, the White House saying it supports Israel's right to defend itself, this following the largest incursion into the West Bank in 20 years. This assault started with a drone strike in the city of Jenin early this morning. At least 8 Palestinians were killed, another 80 wounded when Israeli defense forces moved to disrupt terrorist infrastructure in what they called combat management rooms.
In recent months, Jenin has become a safe haven for terrorists. From that safe haven, terrorists perpetrated savage attacks, murdering Israeli civilians, men, women, and children, as many children as they could find.
The IDF claimed to seize more than 300 explosive devices, some of which were found in a mosque. Israeli Central Command said this operation was not going to be a one-off campaign. Meantime, the Hamas leader issued a statement saying, quote, "Our people everywhere know how to respond to this barbaric aggression." Back here in the U.S., 10 states planning to sue the Environmental Protection Agency over its standards for residential wood-burning stoves. The state's attorneys general say the EPA has failed to review and ensure emission standards for those types of heaters. They say the agency's current testing and certification program is ineffective. The EPA has not responded to the pending litigation. Meantime, the Environmental Protection Agency proposing a rule requiring companies to disclose PFAS materials in their products. These toxic forever chemicals don't degrade in nature, and they're linked to cancer, birth defects, and hormone irregularities. Chemical industries argue it would cost $1 billion to comply, and activists say it wouldn't rid PFAS from consumer products. Cleanup continuing today along the Yellowstone River in Montana following a bridge collapse last month. Witnesses report seeing globs of asphalt binder on islands and the riverbank downstream. The EPA says the globs will probably be recycled. This comes after 10 train cars fell in the water, spilling liquid asphalt and molten sulfur along with that binder. A California professor suing several administrators now at his college for allegedly targeting him over his political beliefs. Here's the National Desk's Angela Brown.
Here's a lawsuit filed by the Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit Institute for Free Speech on behalf of Bakersfield's college professor Damon Johnson. Back in 2019, a fellow professor, Andrew Bond, wrote on his personal Facebook page that America is an expletive piece of expletive country, among other things. Johnson then allegedly reposted Bond's remarks in 2021, calling him a radical social justice warrior. Now, according to the lawsuit, Johnson ended up being investigated by the college after Bond complained of harassment. Johnson later cleared of any wrongdoing. He's now suing several administrators believing he was targeted over his political beliefs. College watchdog group Camps Reform says these lawsuits may seem small, but are important.
What this could do is make these administrators who push these policies aware that they too are being watched and that they will be held to the same standard that they exact from faculty and others on campus.
This is not the first time Bakersfield College has faced controversy. John Corkins, a member of the governing board overseeing the college, is also named in that lawsuit. He compared opponents of diversity efforts to livestock that needed the slaughterhouse. The National Desk reached out to Bakersfield College for comment. We are waiting to hear back. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Inspectors are in North Carolina today looking at a roller coaster that was shut down shortly after a park goer reported a crack in a steel support pillar. A video shows the pillar shifting slightly as passengers fly right by the curve near the crack. It's in the Fury 325 ride at the Carowinds Park in Charlotte. Carowinds said rides are inspected daily and the Fury will stay closed until any repairs needed are complete. A man is recovering in the hospital 8 years after disappearing in Houston. Rudy Farias went missing in March of 2015. He was just 17 at the time and was walking his dog when he vanished. His mother says someone found him now unresponsive outside of a church Saturday with cuts and bruises and called police. We still don't know where he'd been all this time. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, more than 300,000 kids were reported missing last year. Right now, a South Carolina man is in jail, facing multiple charges in a house fire that killed 6 people over the weekend. Authorities found the victims at a home in Green Pond yesterday. A sole teen survivor found outside the home was airlifted to the hospital. The man in custody, 33-year-old Ryan Manigo, is the father of one of the victims, an 11-year-old girl. Now, you may have heard of those new weight loss medications being linked to Ozempic face. Now another part of the body is being labeled the same way due to sagging skin. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains.
Hey there, everybody. Weight management specialists say dropping pounds can always lead to sagging skin, and those who've started using some of the newer injectable medications say they started noticing changes in their faces months ago. Those who've been taking some of these medications, such as Amber Maley, began coming into medical spas such as Kentucky's Derma Lounge for face fillers to fill up what was commonly called Ozempic face.
Diabetics were losing weight on this medication, so they rebranded it as Wegovy brand name. So semaglutide is actually the generic version of that drug.
Now, these same medications also being linked to Ozempic butt. It's simply what can happen in any part of the body as skin changes after weight loss. If the skin elasticity doesn't return to its original shape, when stretched, it will sag. Nurse practitioner Santrina Fletcher told me the sagging skin isn't actually the most common side effect. Others include
fatigue, headache, nausea, constipation. Some people have irritability.
She says for sagging skin anywhere on the body, however, exercise to tighten up the muscles around the area, the best way to reduce the odds of a less than desirable looking butt. Now, there are butt injections with fillers, but they won't necessarily help a lot of that sagging skin with a lot of weight loss. Some people still need skin tightening procedures. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
A social media platform similar to Twitter called Blue Sky temporarily paused signups over the weekend over performance issues. A Blue Sky engineer saying the decision was due to record high traffic. This after Twitter began limiting the number of tweets users can see per day. CEO Elon Musk cited a platform manipulation by other companies for that decision. Coming up, fireworks sales surging for this 4th of July. An important tip you need to know to prevent accidentally starting a fire. We're back after this. The National Desk's team of reporters bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, and we start in California, where farm workers are raising awareness about their rights and protections while working in some extreme heat.
Extreme heat like this can impact the valley's most vulnerable working populations, including farm workers. 60-year-old Lourdes Cardenas drives from Fresno to Kings County each day to work in tomato and lettuce fields. Just last week, the mother of two suffered a heat-related illness. There wasn't water near us. It was about a mile away. The water, the restroom. Since we were working hard, we were sweating. It was 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Cardenas says she called her supervisor and explained her symptoms and reported the incident to Cal OSHA. They listened to me. By Monday, we had water closer to us. And that's the law. According to Cal OSHA, California employers are required to do the following to prevent heat-related illness. Train all employees and supervisors about heat illness prevention. Provide enough fresh water so each employee can drink at least 1 quart an hour and encourage them to do so. Provide access to shade, and develop written procedures. A lot of people don't know their rights. They get dehydrated, and even worse, some die. They think it's normal. They're tired. According to the United Farm Workers of America, state laws have led to a 30% reduction of heat-related injuries. But Cardenas says the laws are clearly not always followed. And now the UFW is pushing for measures on a federal level.
With high inflation, smoke in the atmosphere, and a war overseas, the world can seem pretty bleak. 11-year-old Alana Fisher says she didn't like what she saw on the faces of the people around her.
Everybody just looked miserable, like We just wanted to brighten up people's days.
Now, to do that, Alana came up with the idea of standing outside the Wegmans on Holt Road and giving total strangers flowers. Alana's dad, Thomas, says he hopes the flowers inspire others to spread kindness.
Pay it forward. We're not accepting anything for this. We come out of pocket for it, and it's just to make people happy.
This is the second year.
And in Ohio, trash pickup and recycling service Rumpke reminding people to properly dispose of their leftover fireworks this 4th of July. The company says they tend to see an uptick in truck and container fires this time of year due to used fireworks reigniting. To avoid this, you're asked to submerge used fireworks in water for several minutes before tossing them out. The company says the same rule applies to used charcoal embers. Coming up here on the National Desk, what you need to know about fireworks before you light them this Independence Day. We're back in just 90 seconds. Record fireworks sales are expected this holiday, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission has yearly reminders if you're lighting your own. You want to keep a bucket of water or hose nearby in case of a fire, they say. You want to light fireworks one at a time, then move back quickly. Do not try to relight or pick up the fireworks that have not fully ignited, and never use fireworks when under the influence. Well, get this, a flying car could be hitting the road or the skies within 2 years. Aleph Aeronautics says it's the first fully electric flying vehicle that can also travel on roads. The FAA issued the company a special airworthiness certificate. It allows it to fly in limited locations for research and development purposes only right now. Aleph is taking pre-orders for its Model A, which has a price tag of about $300,000. The first delivery expected by the end of 2025. Wimbledon, the third tennis major of the year, officially kicking off in the UK this morning. Professional tennis players from all around the world are in London now for the season's third major championship. This tournament will run through Sunday, July 16th. 43-year-old Venus Williams, a five-time champion, lost in today's opening round. That's going to do it for us right now. Join me tonight for the evening edition of the National Desk. Check your local listings for exact times. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Thanks for watching. See you soon.